Hey guys, it's Ebony. This video is going to be my postpartum update video. I'm just going to talk about everything that has happened after the pregnancy, including I'm going to talk about the struggles that I had with breastfeeding. Today makes 5 weeks postpartum, exactly 5 weeks since I had my son. And I actually went to the doctor for my postpartum checkup on Tuesday, and I know it's a little bit earlier than they normally do it. They normally do it at 6 weeks, but I went between like 4 and 5 weeks. They just wanted to schedule me a little bit earlier so she could make sure my C-section incision was healing properly. She checked that, and she checked my uterus, and we talked about birth control and things like that. The C-section incision has healed completely. I didn't talk about it in my last video, which I should have, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit in this video about having multiple C-sections. I told you guys in my last video that I've had 4, and in no way do I recommend having C-sections. In no way do I feel like taking a C-section is an easy way out. I had C-sections because I had no other choice, especially after I had my second one. It was very, very hard to find a doctor who would be willing to do a vaginal birth after having 2 C-sections. Now, there are doctors out there that will do that. I was watching a video from a YouTuber named T-Day6. T-Day6, I believe, is her channel. She was talking about how she had 2 natural births. Then she had 2 C-sections. After her second C-section, she refused to let them cut her again. So she decided to find a doctor who would do a C-section after having who would do a vaginal birth for her after having 2 C-sections. And although the doctor that she was going to, he refused to do it, she was able to find someone to do that for her, and she was able to have a successful vaginal birth after having 2 C-sections. So basically, I say all that to say is, if you've had a C-section before, my recommendation as a woman who has had multiple C-sections is try your hardest to find a doctor who would be willing to work with you to do a vaginal birth, a VBAC, a vaginal birth after cesarean section. Try your hardest, because I think that the body and the whole birthing process was meant to be natural. It was meant to be natural. In extreme cases, I believe C-sections are necessary, but I do not believe C-sections are necessary at the rate that they do C-sections nowadays. Almost every woman I know that's given birth, that's kind of close to me, like friends and family, has had a C-section. Literally, there's only maybe 1 or 2 out of all the women I know. You can think about how many women I probably know. There's only 1 or 2 that I know who had all their births vaginally. Like, the rate that they do cesarean sections right now, I do not believe is necessary, and I don't know why they're so quick to do it. And I don't know if it makes the hospital more money, or if it's some type of population control, hidden, conspiracy to control the population. I don't know why they do it so often, but I don't believe it's necessary. So if you had a C-section once, definitely look for a doctor who would be willing to do a vaginal birth for you after that. If you've had 2 C-sections, yes, there are doctors out there. Like I said, the YouTuber said she was able to find one. There is doctors out there that would be willing to do it for you. 3 or more, I don't know, but do your research and do what you feel is best for you. But don't feel like you have to have a C-section if you've had one, because it's not the easier way out. It's actually more difficult than having a vaginal birth because of the healing process, and then the scar tissue and the scarring. I was talking to some of you guys, and you guys were telling me about, some of you had keloids and some of you got infections and things like that with your C-section. I don't think it's a good way to give birth. I don't think it's of course it's not the optimal way to give birth. It's not the way God created the woman's body to give birth. But just know that you have options. And I had my first baby when I was 21, and my second one I was 24. At that time, I wasn't as, I didn't research things as much as I do now. I wasn't as outspoken as I am now, and I kind of went with whatever the doctors told me to do. But if I knew now in my 30s what I did not know in my 20s, for my very first delivery, I would not have had a C-section. My first delivery, I had a C-section because I was in labor for 24 hours. My labor was not progressing, and they said that it had been too long, and that they felt like a C-section would be necessary before the baby gets under distress. There wasn't any real significant problems that caused a C-section. It just was their recommendation, and me being 21 and naive, I was like, okay, it's been 24 hours. My water has broken. They told me, after your water's broken, you're more inclined to have an infection if you don't, hurry up and give birth. I believe the reason my labor was not progressing was because they induced my labor, and now in my 30s, if a doctor were to tell me, okay, we're going to induce your labor at 39 weeks, or we're going to induce your labor at 40 weeks, I would say no. I don't want to be induced. I want my body to go into labor when it's going to go into labor, because I feel like if your body goes into labor when it's ready to go into labor, then it will be ready to give birth. It will, your labor will progress. Maybe you might run into complications, but I believe since your body initiated the labor process, that it'll be a more smooth and easy process. I'm not saying painless, but just a more smooth and easy process than for them to put drugs into your system to cause the labor to start. You know what I'm saying? And every time people, who are having their first child, and they always tell me, oh, the doctor's going to induce me on such and such date, I kind of get sad in my heart a little bit, because I'm like, just let your body go into labor. Even if you go into labor at 41 weeks, 42 weeks, unless the baby is really, really big, you'll be fine. They don't have to induce your labor. But anyway, I say that to say, I didn't know what I know now in my 20s as I do in my 30s. So, I would have made different choices. But I can't go back and change anything that's done. And I have 4 beautiful and healthy children. And I'm healthy and I'm strong. I don't have any medical problems. And I'm blessed. So I don't have any complaints. But there are things that I would have done differently. So that kind of ties into my whole breastfeeding story. So I went in for my cesarean section, and I knew I wanted to breastfeed my son. I breastfed, my other children. My last child I breastfed until she was 2 years old. So I knew I wanted to breastfeed my son. So when they had me fill out my hospital paperwork and they asked me, did I want to breastfeed, bottle feed, or both, I put breastfeed only. After I had my cesarean section and I was, out of the 2-hour recovery, and they put me in my room and they gave me my baby, I immediately started to breastfeed. So I put him on my chest, and, I worked with him just a little bit. It didn't take long to get him to, latch onto my nipple and to start sucking. And I did, and I breastfed for the whole 3 days that I was in the hospital, just breastfeeding only. The baby stayed in the room with me most of the time. He only went to the nursery, for the few checkups and things that they had to do. But for the most part, he was in the bedroom with me. And I would, breastfeed him every couple of hours. I would spend like 20 minutes on one breast and then 20 minutes on the other breast. Well, what I noticed was, right after you give birth, you're supposed to produce colostrum. And that's like kind of like the milk before the milk, or the liquid that comes out of your breast before your actual milk comes in. It's very nutritious. Sometimes I guess it's clear, or it can be yellowish. But I noticed that when my baby was sucking my breast, if I would pull him off, and I would squeeze my nipple, nothing wasn't really coming out. And I'm pretty sure with the sucking motion, he was maybe getting some tiny bit. But I was thinking, if I were to squeeze my nipple, at least something should come out. And then I got to thinking to myself, okay, so when I go into the hospital and they cut me open, my body has not gone into labor. There's nothing inside of my body that naturally triggers my breast to produce colostrum. Of course, when they cut you and they take the baby out, eventually your body is going to recognize that you're not pregnant anymore. But what is there naturally inside of me when I have a C-section that triggers my breast to produce colostrum? So they can cut me, and then 3 hours later, I'm putting the baby on my breast. Is the baby really getting anything out of my breast? Because this is a C-section and not a natural process. I got to thinking that afterward, because after 3 days in the hospital and the baby sucking on my breast, I still felt like I should be able to pinch my nipple and something would come out. You know how you pinch your nipple and you could see a little bit of fluid come out? but nothing was coming out. So I'm like, is my baby really getting anything? And then it led me to think even how I hate C-sections even more, because I think the whole process, the natural process that a woman's body is created to do with childbirth is kind of interrupted with a C-section. So, and I'm not saying that to scare anybody who's having a C-section or to make anybody feel bad. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you my thought process. So anyway, I did breastfeed only in the hospital. And, oh, and just back on that point just a little bit, I think it was T-Day 6 who I was telling you about before. She was saying that, you know, she's had both vaginal and cesarean section births, and with the C-sections, she didn't feel that natural instinct to bond with her baby, you know, after the baby was born. And I think it has something to do when you have a vaginal birth and you're pushing the baby and you having all these feelings and emotions and hormones and things going, you know, it triggers something that naturally, when the baby comes out and then you're relieved of that pain, you naturally feel something to bond with that baby. But when you have a cesarean section, some of that is just not there. And I agree, you know, I felt happy that my babies were born, but I didn't feel, you know, the pain was first and foremost on my mind, because I couldn't even reach over into the baby crib to pick up my baby without feeling pain. So it kind of messes with your ability to bond with the baby. And so anyway, back on breastfeeding. So after I got home, I still try to continue to breastfeed. By day 2 or 3 of being home, my nipples were so raw. They were completely raw. And I didn't have this problem before. I did have kind of pain in my nipples, but I never had them to be raw. And they were so raw. And I'm going to get a little graphic here. So if you you know, don't like graphic talk, please, you're more than welcome to not listen. But I'm just keeping it real with you guys, you know. The whole point of me doing this video is just kind of share with you my experience. So I'm going to keep it real. So by the 2nd or 3rd day, the skin had peeled off both of my nipples to the point where my nipple wasn't brown anymore. It was pink. It was reddish pink. The skin had peeled off parts of my nipple, just the flat surface, the front flat surface of the nipple. You know how the nipples are kind of shaped like it has a flat surface and it kind of, you know, rounds out. Just the flat front surface of my nipple. The skin had peeled off. It was red. It was raw. It was hurting. So I was like, you see what I'm going to do now, because I wanted to continue to breastfeed, but it was so super painful. And then I felt like, okay, my nipple is only going to get worse. It can't heal if the baby is sucking on it, you know, every 2 or 3 hours. So I started to get on the internet and do a little bit of research, although they did have lactation consultants calling me from the hospital, asking me how was breastfeeding going, you know, how are things doing. I really didn't want to talk to them because I just felt like they gave me generic information as opposed to me doing my own research on the internet. And I know you can't believe everything you see on the internet, but I'm smart enough and I'm old enough to be able to sort through what's garbage and what's actual good information. So anyway, I went on the internet and I was looking, you know, I was watching different videos and I was looking, yeah, different articles and things. And there was a couple of videos that I found on YouTube that were very helpful. And they showed that, you know, having a red, peeling, bleeding nipple is not uncommon. It's actually pretty common. And, you know, a lot of women experience it. And then I saw some, you know, in the video, they showed some different women's nipples. And one nipple looked like that thing was about to detach from the lady's breast. It was cracked and pulling, you know, from the actual breast. The nipple looked like it was detaching. It was so disgusting. It was so disgusting. It just looked disgusting and painful, seriously painful. But it was just an example that they were showing that, you know, it happens that women's nipples are cracked and bleeding and peeling and things like that. So what the video recommended is that your own breast milk is a good healing, I guess, agent for your nipple. If your nipple is in this type of state, that you take a little bit of your breast milk, you know, put it all on the nipple, let it air dry, and then it actually aids in the healing. They also recommended some different balms and nipple balms and creams and things that you can use. I really didn't want to use nipple balms and creams because those things were really supposed to soothe the nipple. and I wanted healing. I didn't want soothing. I didn't want to soothe my nipple, you know. I wanted my nipple to heal. So I didn't go out and purchase the balms and things that they recommended. But I did do the breast milk, and I let breast milk sit on my nipple and dry. After I took a shower, you know, I washed my nipple really well, you know, not scrubbed it, but I made sure it was clean. Then I expressed some breast milk. I put it on the nipple, let it air dry. Then I put my bra on, and it did help a lot. The breast milk helped a lot, which makes me want to breastfeed my son even more, because I'm like, this breast milk is so healing. You know, it's good for eye infections. It's good for, you know, healing a raw nipple. I heard it's good for baby acne. I actually used it on my son's baby acne on his face, and it did clear it up. It's just good for so many things. So you know it has to be nutritious and so good for your child that I just want to give it to him even more. So meanwhile, while my breast was healing and I really couldn't breastfeed my son for two reasons. Now the video and the information that I watched and the information that I read online said that you can continue to breastfeed when your nipples are cracked. If you can, you know, take the pain, it's not harmful to your child. If you don't have any type of diseases, you know, it's not harmful if your child maybe gets a little bit of blood in his mouth. I know it's disgusting, but hey, these breasts were made to feed our children, so it's just a thing. But it said it's not harmful if your baby happens to ingest a little bit of blood due to your nipple being cracked. You know, as long as you don't have HIV or anything like that, it's perfectly fine. But I wasn't comfortable with breastfeeding my son. First of all, I didn't want him to ingest any blood, and second of all, the pain was too much. So my husband went and bought me a manual pump, not electric one, a manual pump, and I was pumping milk. And I really didn't have any problem with my nipple bleeding if I pumped it. Now, the great thing about having a manual pump with my sore, cracked, bleeding nipples, as opposed to having like a electric pump, is I could control. Now, if the first 3, 4, 5 pumps, if I would go very, very slow and get the milk to flowing, then I could pump fast and the milk would be completely milk. It wouldn't be any blood in the milk. If I started fast and just, I would break some type of seal that was on my nipple and there would be blood in the milk. So I learned this the hard way. Of course, the first couple of times I pumped, I got blood in the milk and I just got rid of it. I was like, no, I can't. I'm not going to give that to him. So the next time I started off slow. After I got the milk to flowing, then I could increase the speed and wouldn't get any blood in the milk. And then I would mix milk and formula, or just milk only, depending on how much I was able to pump. And I had a pretty good milk supply, so I was able to pump normally 4 ounces from each breast. And that was really, really good. 4 ounces from each breast. I'm spitting everywhere. Like a 4-ounce bottle, so that was really good. But, you know, if I was lazy and I forgot to pump or whatever, and he needed to eat and I didn't have much breast milk, I didn't have much breast milk left already pumped, then I would just mix breast milk and formula and give it to him. So it took about 2 good weeks for my nipples to completely heal, where they were completely brown. There weren't any pink spots, any damaged tissue, anything like that. So after those maybe 2.5 weeks, I tried to breastfeed him again. But at this time, he had already gotten used to the bottle nipple. He had already gotten used to feeding from a bottle. And it was difficult for him to latch on. You know, even though he latched on so perfectly in the hospital as a newborn, after 2.5 weeks, it was difficult for him to latch on. And he would get frustrated. And he would be crying. And he would be moving his head. And he would have his mouth open. And he would be moving his head. But he wouldn't just clamp down and start sucking. And I got frustrated because I was like, breastfeeding your child is supposed to be a natural thing. It should just be like, I put him there and he just does it, you know. And I was getting frustrated because I wanted so desperately to be able to breastfeed my child, because for me, it's such a bonding experience to be able to, you know, have your child in your arms breastfeeding. You're looking into his eyes or her eyes. You feel that connection. This is your child. Your child needs you. You love your child. It's just such a bonding experience. And I wanted to be able to do that for him for, you know, maybe 1 or 2 years. I wanted you know, to be able to just nurture him. And you know, he's only going to be a baby for so long. I didn't just want to throw breastfeeding out the window quickly. But I couldn't get him to latch on. So I had to, you know, continue to pump and continue to sometimes mix formula with breast milk, you know, depending, you know, if we were out, if we were going out, or we were already out, or, you know, things like that. How, you know, if I had breast milk already pumped. So he was getting quite a bit of formula, and I was feeling bad about it. Not that there's anything wrong with formula, you know, per se, or mothers who give their children formula, or mothers who don't breastfeed. I don't have anything. You know, I'm not so serious about that you know, I'm taking a stand against formula. Nothing like that. I just prefer breast milk because I know it's healthy. I know it's nutritious. I know it's good for their brain, good for their body, good for their overall health. And I know that, you know, canned milk or artificial milk or powdered milk it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as natural milk, you know, that is created in a mother's breast. It probably has some chemicals and things in there, you know, that are not the best for a baby. Maybe not harmful, but not the best. And I just wanted to be able to breastfeed him. So now, 5 weeks later, he does breastfeed, and my nipples are perfectly fine. They're not sore. I don't know why they were so sore in the beginning. I don't know. But they're not sore now. And it had nothing to do with my technique. You know, like I said, I've breastfed children before, and I had no problem. I knew the technique. I knew I needed to put the full nipple in his mouth and not just the tip of it. I know I needed to, you know, make sure he's taking a big open mouthful of nipple in order to, you know, get a good latch and not create pain. But I don't know what happened. But now he's breastfeeding. But still, it's not an easy thing to get him to breastfeed. He still gets frustrated. I can get him to latch, but he still gets frustrated from time to time, and I still give him the bottle. But I think since I don't want to give up on breastfeeding, I'm not, because I really want to do that, but I think I'm going to have to pump, you know, too, because if I have him in my arms and I'm trying to breastfeed him and he gets frustrated, sometimes I just give up and I just go get a bottle, and that's because I don't have any pump milk available. So I think I'm going to have to pump along with giving him the breast. So if he doesn't take the breast, I can just go get a bottle of pump milk. But anyway, that was long. That was long to talk about breastfeeding. That was a long span of video. So let me just get into a few other postpartum things. So I went to the doctor. When I gave birth, I was 219 pounds. And I went to the doctor Tuesday, and I weighed in at 179. So I don't really know how much of a difference that is. 219 to 179. Let's say 219, let's say 20, 179, 20. So it's about 41 pounds. Am I doing the math right? 179, 180, about 40 pounds. Yeah, about 40 pounds, somewhere around there. And so, that's been just simply, you know, breastfeeding the times that I have been breastfeeding, and haven't done any exercises. I'm just losing weight. You know, normally most people lose a bit of weight after they give birth just naturally. But 179, that's not my ideal weight. I would love to be in the 140s. Maybe I'll work on that later. Right now, I'm not too worried about it. You know, I'm not. I have a lot on my plate right now, so I'm not worried about it. Let me see what else I can tell you guys. Sleep. I don't get any sleep hardly. I'm recording this video right now. It's after midnight, and my baby just fell asleep. I should be sleeping while he's sleeping, but you know, it's very hard to find time to record videos, so I decided to sneak away and do it right now. But he doesn't sleep through the night at all. He wakes up probably every 2 hours at night, and sometimes he wakes up and he stays up for multiple hours at a time. But you know, I don't mind. I'm very tired, and it gets frustrating, it gets draining, and sometimes I just want to sleep. But at the same time, I think about this little baby who I love so dearly, beautiful little baby, that I probably won't ever have an opportunity to have a little baby like this in my arms again as my own child. And I just think about how much I love him. I don't even, the sleeplessness, it doesn't even matter. I love this child to death. And I'm just enjoying this time of him being little. So let's see what else we got here. So let me see if I can show you guys my stomach. Let's see. I got on this shirt right here. So this is my stomach. See, this is the little pooch I was telling you about that kind of folds over my C-section. Let's see if I can show you guys. So this is my stomach, and this is like the little bit that folds over my incision. Okay. So my stomach is going down pretty good. Like I said, I'm not too much worried about my body right now, you know. In past pregnancies, after I've given birth, I wanted to just get back in great shape and just look awesome and look gorgeous, look beautiful, like I never had a baby. I don't know, this pregnancy, I just don't care, and I'm glad my stomach has gone down a bit, but like the toning that I need to do and really getting it back looking good, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it one bit. So I think there's more stuff that I want to talk about, but right now I'm kind of sleepy, and I know when I'm sleepy the videos are very dry, you know, kind of boring. I'm sorry about that, but I'm kind of sleepy and I can't really think straight anymore. So I'm going to end the video right here, and I will talk to you guys later. Yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.